Before we enter the game today, there's been some things that have changed with the character creation. When you go to your jobs and pick a certain loadout, there are now new loadout categories, and this is more so specific for trinkets. What this does is in the future, this will allow more items to be added to a certain category without making this a 4,000 page long scroll list. While we're in the menu, there's more marking options for your different characters, so make sure you take a time to check through your character creator. Lizards, for example, can now have more scars. They can get head scars, face scars, chest scars. I didn't go through every single species. Not all species got all the scars, but there's a lot more options in general. A new station joins the fray. It is named Exo Station, and there are immediate differences between this station and other stations. Features a lot of unique sprites. For example, glass airlocks are literally the like resin doors from CM13 or MC14. The wall sprites, window sprites are all a little bit different from the normal art style. They're literally called resin windows in some areas. So the station thematically is much different than others. If we take a very quick look at the overall layout of the station, the bridge is located right in the middle to the left. The AME is a very unique function. Let me just move over here to the AME. AME is literally just in a public walkway. Anyone can walk here. Haven't seen something like this in a long time in Space Station 14, where there's just the AME is just nowhere near engineering in general, because engineering is well, I mean, I guess it's not super far away, but it's far away in terms of the relative normalness of how these stations function. But again, the station isn't meant to feel like a normal station. I believe the lore of this is that it's taken over like Xeno ship or something. I honestly haven't looked too much into it. You'll still find normal features here, like normal reinforced walls and stuff. Cargo looks pretty general like cargo. I love this giant gambling table. The main salvage arm is actually disconnected from cargo as well, and I also haven't seen something like this since Split in Space Station 14, where salvage is sort of off on its own, but not quite. So that's another interesting feature. Uh, Without delving too much more into this, you could discover this yourself. Quick look at the armory. I'd like some of the scenes that are left behind here, like bullet casings. Parts of the station are very set up. The AI core looks great, different themes than most. And you have this armory, which is a rather small armory. This isn't the biggest station in the world, though, so it kind of makes sense. But yeah, new station for people to play with. Quick look at Gem Pop. I will stop hovering over everything after I said I'm done hovering over things. And to rip the band-aid off early, 4 stations have been removed from the pool. Convex, Loop, Meta, and Omega have been removed. Some of these stations, such as Meta and Omega, have been around for a long time. Convex and Loop are new. I don't know the exact reasons these are all removed. I just have to assume that they were just falling behind in maintenance. Anyways, there's a ton of stations in this game. We did just get a new one, so overall we're down 3. There's a new weapon available to Syndicate agents and Nukies. It is called the Estoc DMR. It is 18 telecrystals. The 18 telecrystal pot cost makes it ever so slightly cheaper than the Bulldog and 1 telecrystal more expensive than the C20. There is the ability to purchase an extra magazine for 2 telecrystals as well, and these magazines hold 25 bullets apiece. It does come with the duffel bag, and the Estoc is a 4x4. The Estoc's main unique feature is once you wield it, you get the extended camera like you do with the Hristov. This gun technically shoots 5 bullets a second, but it is a burst fire gun. There is no option to swap to full auto. You can swap to semi-auto. So when you shoot it and have it actually bolted, it is a 3-round burst gun. So yes, it does technically able to fire 5 bullets a second, but per burst, you do 17 damage per bullet, so 17 times 3. So it's a pretty accurate gun. Like, even if I stand off to the side with this character basically off the edge of my screen, I could see them. And the bullets, even at this range, can miss, but overall, it's pretty accurate. It's not exactly sniper accurate, but it's more accurate than most other guns in the game. Either way, it's a new gun in the sandbox. While we're on the topic of Syndicate agents, you can now actually purchase pellet drum magazines for the Bulldog, as well as slug magazines for an extra telecrystal. The slugs do have really good breaching capability and hit really hard, so you either spend extra TC for more specialized ammo, or get the general ammo for 2 TC, which will put it on par with the C20 mag, and these mags actually have pretty much the same damage output potential. Drum mag of the shotgun shells technically has a little bit more potential. The Bulldog in general has a little bit more potential now that it does a lot of structural damage. Either way, though, nice to be able to buy ammo for this gun after so long. And finally, Thieving gloves are dead for Syndicate agents. Thieves also will no longer spawn with these. However, Thieves will now just have the inherent ability to have the Thieving gloves ability, as in they'll strip without a notification and quicker. They can toggle this on or off, but that means as a thief, you can now wear any gloves, so you can technically have insulated gloves and steal effectively. So it's kind of a buff for thieves, and syndicate agents are going to have to really figure out a new way of stealing things. The thieving gloves were a very top dominant pick, allow you to steal things quickly and without people noticing. That is gone for them. Explosive payloads will no longer chain explode. They no longer have the explosive property in them. However, if you make a bunch of explosive payload grenades, those will chain explode. Yes, it doesn't make sense, but otherwise, the cost of being able to just print out 20 of these and only have one actual grenade and destroy an entire department was too fast and too cheap. So forcing you to have to take the time to make 20 modular grenades by hand is, you can still crater an entire department. It just requires more setup, more materials, and more time. Syndicate Contraband will now have different costs associated with it. For example, a pack of Interdyne cigarettes is only 50 telecrystals, or 50 spaceos. But a more dangerous item like an energy sword is actually worth 2,500 spaceos. So there is some potential here for people like security to make a profit off confiscated goods. Items with reflect chances will now actually display that they have reflect chances when you shift-click examine them, and it will tell you what they reflect. For example, an energy sword is bullets and energy bolts. An energy shield will just be energy bolts. Very helpful for people who just aren't aware of what items are reflective. It's not always clear. Most items are good at somewhere in the description telling they reflect, but they never tell you how much or what they reflect. Great quality of life. Spacing damage has been unnerfed, and what this means is that you will essentially take about 4 times more damage from space than you previously did. So I'm breathing oxygen, so I'm not suffocating and taking the blunt damage and cold damage from space. We got a health analyzer just to visualize this easier. So I've been out here for like, I don't know, 10 seconds, and I've already taken more than a third of my health. Also, while we're here, the health examine has been changed. So when you take a lot of like blunt damage, it'll say he is beaten up. And then now I have superficial burns because it's a low amount of burn, but I am definitely beat up. As I get more blunt damage taken to me, I am badly beat up. So it's more clear than the previous ones, or it'd be like you have like lacerations and stuff, and it didn't necessarily mean pierce or slash. Either way, that's more clear, and you will have to fear space now. It will kill you. Tear gas has been tweaked. Tear gas has been tweaked. Its overall effectiveness at like blinding people and making you cough has been changed, but tear gas itself will no longer act as like a smoke grenade. You won't be able to see, you can see all the way through it now. It is transparent, but it does slow you down now. You cough as well as obviously, and the blindness. So that is technically the buff there, but they're not as effective for smoke grenades, which I guess you could also consider a buff because now security, if they have their mask on, can follow the suspect through the gas much easier. Either way, nice change. You can now order a rifle crate for 8 grand. This comes with 2 lecters with 4 magazines. So now on top of being able to order WTs, you can order lecters. The lecters are cheaper because the WT is just simply the better gun overall. But it is more expensive than the enforcers. So there's more options, middle road options, and just another way to get more lecters on the station. Holopads overall have been nerfed for AI. While they're anchored, you can see in a 1 tile radius around them, including the tile it's on. If it gets unanchored, you can't see. Before, you could see basically an entire room with it. So that's a pretty big change. That means cameras are, again, more important for this. But if somebody has disconnected all the cameras and forgot about the holopad and they step over the holopad, the AI can still see you. Techdisks now display the actual name of the tech on the disk itself. So if you have a massive stack and you right click, it'll tell you all the names. Of course, if you shift click, it'll still say it in the name and in the description. I guess that's a description. So this saves some time and probably a little less carpal tunnel to figure out what you just printed out. You can now cut AI wires out of the APC. The only thing that's really on here is access and AI. So there's a control board for the APC, and you can make it so the AI can't turn off or on your APCs. Monkeys and kobolds can now wear emergency EVA suits, so just one more easier opportunity for these critters to survive. There is a new reagent called Corgium. Corgium is rather difficult to make. You need uncooked animal proteins, happiness, and juice that makes you weh. And to turn somebody into a corgi, you must have at least 50 units of the reagent in the person's body, and it'll turn you into a smart corgi. But you also take cellular damage if you take this much. So it's a interesting, probably not going to be seen too often, which I guess makes sense for something that's pretty memey. Reagent. So if I just inject myself with all of, just do 60 units of the Corgium, I will be polymorphed into a smart corgi. You could try to revert back at any time, and it will let you. So I guess let me reconvert myself. So you're not stuck in it permanently, but you have the option of staying as the corgi if you wish. So I've turned back into the corgi. You actually keep your hand slot. You have a PDA slot. So you can exist functionally as a corgi. You have both hands. You have a backpack slot. You can put on clothes, and you can even like put the. You can even wear things like blood reds and put it on yourself, and there is indeed a blood red corgi sprite. So, just for the fact you can, there's so much effort put into this. I feel like people are going to try to seek this out because it's just so bizarre. Chefs can now make both full English breakfast and full American breakfast. I don't know why the full American breakfast is like seemingly insulted. There's some references with the full English too, but and on the topic of food, many food items have been giving enhanced sprites, which again, I always would say the same things with this. This helps color the world, makes things look more believable. Overall, just really awesome to see more sprite work in general. You can now find giant lollipops in the chocolate machines and a propeller hat in the clothes mate. And yes, the propeller actually does spin. And there's been further tweaks to departmental economy. Now, when another department orders things, they won't get the little paper slip anymore. Instead, the request will be sent directly to cargo, and from here, they'll be able to approve it, and it'll take the money out of their respective account. It'll even tell you where it came from. So, for example, art supplies were ordered by service, so it'll take the money respectively from service. You can still put in your own orders, obviously, as a cargo tech, and it'll still say from supply. And if you approve that, it'll take money out of your budget. It's pretty simple. You can now order plant crates that come with a variety pack of potted plants. Potted plants themselves can actually now be picked up with two hands and transported, so you don't just have to click and drag them like you did before. Cyborgs are now technically stronger and they can drag objects around easier. So, for example, let me just put a potted plant down because that was the topic. You can drag this thing around easier, much easier to be worth noting. And cyborgs themselves are now actually a little bit more dense, but the extra strength of a cyborg still means you can actually pull a cyborg as a cyborg faster than you could. So, just makes life a lot easier as a cyborg, and dragging them around will feel a little bit more probably practical for how big and bulky they probably should be. Chief objectives are now actually properly checked that the animals, for example, you have to steal are actually on the station, so no longer will you be asked to steal Bingus when Bingus just doesn't even exist and never existed. So thieves will definitely run into this frustration, and will probably be happy to see that fixed. Landmines now have a blinking red light that is visible even in darkness, so hopefully as a salvager before you step on it, you'll see it blinking in the darkness. I mean, it should catch your eye, especially if it's pitch black. It's especially eye-catching in this level of darkness, even when there's a little bit of like gradient shadow lying on it. Scrap armor can now be crafted. It is rather expensive. Scrap armor itself requires an apron, 30 LV cables, 30 steel, welder, and a utility belt. The welder does not get consumed. And the scrap helmet is a little bit cheaper. You need a bucket, 15 low voltage cables, the ability to use a knife, 10 steel, a welder, and a wrench. The helmet certainly still looks a bit like a bucket. The scrap armor has some indications that it was an apron, or at least an apron style. I really like how you can see the LV wires holding it all together. The scrap armor actually has really good stats. It's 50% pierce, blunt, and slash resist, which is great. The heat resistance isn't amazing, but it slows you down by 40%, and it has a really long do after to even put it on or take it off, so you can't just hot swap this thing in combat. The sound of putting it on sounds like Iron Man coming out of the cave, I guess. And the helmet also requires time to put on. The helmet has 10% blunt slash pierce and heat resist. And literally, like, I feel like the Iron Man 1 suit must have been some inspiration for this, because when you put it on, the semblance of the bucket totally goes away, and it has like this like face visor cut out. Either way, though, I really want to see people employ this during nuke ops, because it's awesome. One last thing I forgot in my notes is the Disabler only has 16 shots instead of 20 now, so a small nerf, but still a lot better than it used to be. There has been a good bit of changes over this 2 weeks. There are things being actively tested. For example, the raid suit has stun resistance as a test merge. I'm not including that here because there's no indication of which way that's going. I didn't look too hard into it. And of course, there's going to be more things upcoming over the next 2 weeks. Either way, I want you to thank our maintainers and contributors, and of course, thank you for watching.